Let's make sure we're all on the same page. Are you ready? Okay, so your test is going to be very similar to what you saw on the skeletal muscle business, but on the skeletal system test, okay? So it's 100 questions still. The first 50 questions are multiple choice matching true-false questions from your objectives from chapters 9 and 10. The last 50 questions are diagrams of muscles, okay? And it's going to have one of those big charts at the end again, and you're labeling muscles, okay? The muscles that you need to know are the muscles from your lab manual. Okay, so you should have a master list of muscles there. That's what you need to know. Remember we said that in the PowerPoint, there are red lines underneath some muscles that don't mean anything. Pay no attention to the red lines. You're just knowing what's on your lab master list, okay? You also need to know the actions of those muscles that are in your master list. They are what we've been talking about in this PowerPoint for chapter 10, okay? Remember to learn those as groups. So if you know a muscle is in this anterior compartment of your arm, his job is to flex. If he's in the posterior compartment, his job is to extend. So learn them as groups, okay? Also remember that their names can tell you a lot about what they do too, okay? All right, some things, your master muscle list, be able to identify each. Muscle actions from lecture. Skeletal muscle physiology, that's like the action potential and the excitation, contraction, coupling, and the cross bridge cycle with the myosin heads and the actin. So that's the physiology part, as well as our muscle twitch diagram of there's that latency period before an actual contraction happens and all that stuff. Okay, but that's all in your objectives. Connective tissue wrappings of skeletal muscles, so that's the epimysium, paramysium, endomysium. Make sure you know that on a diagram. The microscopic anatomy of skeletal muscle, so a sarcomere, what is a myosin, what's an actin, A bands, I bands, Z discs, those things, okay? And the sequence of events and excitation, contraction of a skeletal muscle fiber. So just knowing those steps in order, okay? Are there any questions? Okay. And you can ask me questions when I'm walking around today. Okay, I don't want to make you feel like you can't ask me questions now. You can ask me questions. Okay, I want to clarify. I just want to make sure everybody understands what's coming. Okay? All right. If you guys are good, then we will pray and get started. I've got a little bit to talk to you about today, and then we'll get to drawing some pictures. So who wants to pray for us? Okay, so we are going to try to go pretty quickly. I'm going to exit out of this so I can get back to the beginning. And we are looking at our muscle actions. Okay, and remember, muscles that are located close to each other have actions. Okay, and we had gotten here, we were looking at the posterior compartment of your arm. Okay, we've got our infraspinatus, our supraspinatus, teres minor, teres major, and then your triceps brachii. Okay? Our triceps brachii is primarily our extensor. Okay. If we look at the front, we've already talked about the sternocleidomastoid. Where does he start? Sternum and he goes to the mastoid process. Perfect. Good job. Okay, on the shoulder you have a deltoid. Why is he named deltoid? Triangle, his shape. Okay, pectoralis major is on the top. It's the most superficial. But then if we take the pectoralis major off, our pectoralis minor is below it. Okay, so major is big, minor is small. Okay, and he runs to these first couple ribs. Okay, we've already looked at the biceps brachii, but over on this side we can also see the serratus anterior, and the serratus anterior are these muscles that are connecting to these inferior ribs, these bottom ribs. Okay, he's really important. We'll get to some of his functions in a little bit. Okay, so he's serrated. He has holes in him, and he's on the anterior. He's on the front. All right, on the back. One of your pictures you're going to draw, it says draw two diagrams for all of these things right here. Your two diagrams are a superficial side and a deep side. So really it could be one figure, just the two different sides of it, okay? But superficial trapezius is right here. If we added the other side of the trapezius, it would look like a trapezoid, okay? Deltoid is on the shoulder, and your latissimus dorsi is this big muscle that wraps around your back. Then if we cut those away, we have a levator scapulae. What do you think he does? Elevates the scapula, the shoulder, yeah. Pulls it up. Levator scapulae. See, you already know his action. We haven't even talked about it. Okay, supraspinatus is above the spine of the scapula. Infraspinatus is below the spine of the scapula. Okay? And then you have your teres minor and your teres major. Oh, and on this side we have our rhomboid major, and our rhomboid minor. Okay, again, named after their shape. Okay, so some movements. Movements of the pectoral girdle. So we can elevate the pectoral girdle. That's going to be done by muscles on the back, our trapezius, and our levator scapulae. Okay, because we already said that elevates the scapula. Okay, depression, pushing them down, is still the trapezius, but the bottom part of the trapezius. Okay, so he's going to pull down on the scapula, as well as your serratus anterior going around the front, and your latissimus dorsi, which is your big muscle on the back. Okay, so they're going to be pulling down to make your scapula go down. Okay? Then we have lateral or forward abduction. Okay, like that motion. Okay, you're pushing forward. This is also called protraction. Okay, so you're protracting, you're going forward. That's done primarily through your serratus anterior, so it's in the front, so it pulls your scapula forward. And then retraction, going backwards, is done by the muscles in the back, the big muscles in the back, so your trapezius and your rhomboids. Okay? And then finally, rotation. And if you're doing pull-ups, primarily through the trapezius or the rhomboids, they're in your back. But we know there's lots of muscles in the area, and so they're also working and helping to stabilize those motions as well. Okay? Questions on those? Okay. Which is that first bullet. Several muscles have to work together to make these actions work. Okay, so most movements by the serratus anterior, which help push forward, and your posterior muscles, your trapezoids, trapezius. I always call the trapezius trapezoids, so I'm so stuck on this chain. Anyway, okay, so the trapezius is going to be your prime one in the back. Your serratus anterior is the prime one in the front. Okay. The serratus anterior is also called the boxer's muscle because it's going to give you that forceful punch forward. Okay, so now onto your arm. These are named based on where they're located and what they do. Okay? So if you are on the anterior side, your job is going to be to flex the wrist, right? So those are going to be flexors. So you see on this picture, we're looking at the anterior surface, we're looking at flexors. If we're on this side of the arm, they're going to be extensors. Okay, so flexors on the anterior, extensors on the posterior. Okay, and these are named based on the bone that they are laying on top of, the bone that they connect to. Okay, so on your arm, which one is your radius side? Your pinky or your thumb? Thumb. Thumb is radius. Your pinky is ulna. Okay, so we have flexor carpi ulnaris. He's a flexor, and he runs from the carpals to the ulna, and he rides along that pinky side. Okay. After him is palmaris longus, and he's the one that goes up into your palm. Makes sense, right? Okay. And then we have flexor carpi radialis. So he flexes and he runs from the carpals to the radius. So he's going to be on your thumb side. Okay? So even though there's a lot of little muscles in here, their names make sense. Okay? So think about it conceptually. On this side over here, we have this big muscle, the brachioradialis. Where did he start? Up here. So he starts up here in the anterior compartment of your arm, and he goes all the way down here. Okay, so he wraps around. And then our pronator teres is that little guy right there. Okay? Pronator teres, what's he going to do? Pronate, okay, which is flipping palm down. Okay, so he's a pronator. Okay, he's also a weak flexor of the elbow because he's in that flexing compartment. Okay? Flexor carpi radialis, hand flexor, and he also abducts the hand. Okay, remember abducting is going away from midline. Okay, so this is abducting your arms, but then abducting your wrist is just hard to do. Okay, it's rotating this direction. Okay, abducting. And so the muscle that runs right along here, when it contracts, allows that to happen. Okay? So he abducts because he is on that lateral side. Okay? Then if we jump down, we'll go back to palmaris longus, but if we jump down the flexor carpi ulnaris, which runs along the other side, along your pinky side, he's also a flexor, but instead of abducting, he can adduct. He can pull that direction. Okay? The palmaris longus is a weak wrist flexor because he's still in that compartment, but he really helps tense the palm during hand movement. So he helps hold everything here together because he is pulling on this palmar aponeurosis. Okay, so that tendon-like sheet that's covering your palm. Okay, so it helps stabilize things. Okay, if we cut a little bit away and we look a little bit deeper in the anterior compartment, we are going to see this guy. This is the only guy from this view you need to know. Okay, he's the extensor carpi radialis longus. He's the only one over here. Okay, so if you see this view, that's what you got. Okay, so he is an extensor. He helps extend, and he runs from the carpals to the radius. Okay, so now we're in the posterior forearm muscles. So these are all going to be extensors. And again, we have extensor carpi ulnaris. He's going to be on the pinky side. Extensor carpi radialis longus is going to be on the thumb side. Okay, and then the extensor digitorum runs into the digits, into the fingers. Okay? So, extensor carpi radialis on your thumb side, he's going to extend and abduct, pulling that direction. Extensor carpi ulnaris extends and adducts, pulls towards the pinky. And the extensor digitorum is the prime mover of finger extension. So extending your fingers, it also extends wrists and flares the fingers. Okay, so it's all done with that guy right there. Okay? Questions? Right. So again, make it make sense in your head. Do the movement and see what's happening. Okay. As you don't have to know this, but look at all those muscles in your hand. Perfect, cool. Okay, so there's a lot of really small muscles that are in your hands that allow you to do all those weird movements that your fingers do. Okay, so it's super important that we have these, but we don't have to know. Okay, so now moving down to your lower leg. Okay, so we're in the thigh area. We have a couple muscles that we're going to look at here. The iliacus muscle, the psoas muscle. I learned that as the iliac psoas muscle. tensor fascia latae is your lateral muscle here that goes into your IT band or your iliotibial tract, going on the side there. Okay, then you have your quadriceps muscles. So there are 4 muscles here that make up your quadriceps. You have your rectus femoris, whose fibers go up and down, your vastus lateralis on the lateral side, your vastus medialis on your medial side, and there's also a vastus intermedius that is underneath the rectus femoris. You can't see it. Okay? But those 4 muscles make up your quadriceps muscles. Okay? Your sartorius is this band muscle that runs along here. And then you've got all these muscles here together in the middle. Again, this may be a section where you come up with a saying or you come up with a sentence using their first letters so you can remember them in order. Okay? So if you start in the middle, you have the pectineus, then the adductor longus, then the adductor magnus, and then the gracilis in the very inside. Okay? So, thinking of muscle functions, muscle actions. If you're an adductor, your responsibility is pulling that leg back into the midline. So where are you going to contract? On the medial surface or the lateral surface? Medial. You're going to get this shorter so that the leg comes in. Okay, so these adductors are going to be found in the medial surface. Okay, adductor magnus, adductor longus, they're all in here. Adductor brevis, he's deep, but he's in this area too. The pectineus, this guy right here, and the gracilis, this guy right here. They're all in the medial aspect of your thigh. It makes sense, right? Okay. Thigh flexion. To flex your thigh, you lift your leg. Okay? So you're going to see the muscles on the anterior surface contract, which for us is going to be the iliac-psoas muscle, the iliacus and the psoas. Okay? Then thigh flexion and abduction. So up and in. Oh, sorry. No, abduction. I said that wrong. Up and out, right? Yeah, sorry. Okay, it's going to be the sartorius and the tensor fasciae latae, okay, that are over more on the lateral side. Okay? Questions? Okay. Okay, just a different picture, deeper on your adductors. So there's your brevis, your longus, and your magnus is this big guy over here. Okay? And then here's a different picture of your vastus muscles. So if we took that rectus femoris off, there's your vastus lateralis, your vastus medialis, and then your vastus intermedius is there in the middle. Okay? So those are the 3 that go with that rectus femoris to make the quadriceps. Okay? All right. The posterior of your leg. We've got our muscles here, gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, and then we've got our adductors and our gracilis over there still, our iliotibial tract running along the side, and then we've got these guys here. Okay, together these muscles make up what we call the hamstrings, the back of your leg. Okay, the lateral muscle is the biceps femoris, so it runs on the back. The medial muscles, there's 2, one sits on top of the other. Okay, so the semitendinosus sits on top of the semimembranosus. Okay, but those 3 muscles together, semimembranosus, semitendinosus, and biceps femoris, make up your hamstrings, the back of your leg. Okay, so let's talk about movements. Thigh extension. Okay, so extend, yeah.
If you had an ACL repair and then you used the cadavers and you took part of your hamstring, which one of those would they have used?
I'm not sure which ligament they use, but it's going to be one of these guys, either this guy down here or this guy right here. You want to find it? You want to find it? Figure it out? No, you don't care enough. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so thigh extension. You're going to be, remember, pushing your leg back when you extend. Okay, what contracts when you push your leg back? Your butt, right? Okay, I wouldn't make you all stand up and do it, but it's okay, you can do it later. Okay, but thigh extension is gonna be your gluteus maximus. That has to contract, pull your leg up. Okay, thigh abduction, okay, abducting, moving out, is your gluteus medius, he's along the side, and your gluteus minimus, we can't see him, but he's on the side as well. Knee extension, sticking your leg, your knee, making it straight, is the quadriceps muscles, okay, that group. And then knee flexion, pulling it back, are gonna be your hamstrings, okay? We also get some thigh extension there as well, okay? Then this just shows you where your gluteus minimus is. He's deep to your medius and your maximus. And that looks very painful. Okay. Last slide. Muscle actions of your lower, oh, this isn't the last slide, but this is the last group of muscles. Okay, so of your lower leg, you have the tibialis anterior. So he runs on the anterior side of your tibia, right here in the front. The fibularis longus runs right along the fibula, right? Okay, so he runs right along the fibula. The gastrocnemius, we're going to see him better from the back side, but you can see him poking out right there. And the extensor digitorum longus, he will also see him better from the side, but he's right there. Okay, plantar flexion, remember, is standing up on your toes, okay? To do that, you need to use the muscles in the back of your leg. Okay, so that's your gastrocnemius and your soleus. We'll see those on the next picture. Plantar flexion and foot eversion, pulling your foot out like that. You're going to contract this muscle on the side. So the fibularis longus and the fibularis brevis is underneath it a little bit. But you're going to contract that side. Dorsal flexion and foot eversion. So pulling your toes up and rotating your feet in is your tibialis anterior. So think about if you pull your toes up, you have to contract the muscle, make it shorter to pull it up that direction. And then toe extension, pulling your toes out, is your extensor digitorum longus. Extending your digits. Yeah.
When you get like a Charlie horse, like in your calf, what muscle is that?
It's going to be usually your gastrocnemius back here. He's the big guy in the back. Yeah. Okay. So we've seen this picture. That was the same one from, well, it's got a little bit removed, but it's okay. Let's go to this one. Okay. This is another one where it may be helpful to memorize them in some sort of order. Come up with some sentence that will help you. But it goes gastrocnemius as the big guy you see in the back. So if you see somebody's big calf muscles, it's probably the gastrocnemius. Underneath him is the soleus, fibularis longus, extensor digitorum longus, tibialis anterior on the front. Okay, so they come in layers. Alrighty. Oh, and there from the back, there's your gastrocnemius. Their calcaneal tendon attaches it to the calcaneus down at the bottom. And cutting off the gastrocnemius, you can see the soleus right underneath them.